Good morning and welcome to Preparing for Prosperity. I'm AJ Harrison. Today is Friday, August 11th, 2023. So, I came back last week from being gone for a couple months, did an episode, and then had a couple episodes in the can waiting to go out. And the files were corrupted on them, and there was no audio, and so I had to delete them. And by the time I realized what was going on, it was too late because we already had a 5-day float trip for the scouts scheduled down the river, and I just could not make it work to re-record those episodes. And so I took down the one that went up, that the audio was just not even there. And then upon checking the other one, the audio wasn't there for that one either. Somehow the files corrupted. I checked on GarageBand, which is the program that I use, and when I recorded them, you could hear my voice. But when it saved the files, something happened, and it was just clicking and scratching. So that's why there wasn't a couple last week. And then when we got back on late Monday afternoon, everything was kind of awry, and so I tried to get on Tuesday, and it's now Friday, and I don't even know how many hours into trying to figure out why these audio files aren't recording. I recorded a kind of a catch-up podcast yesterday on Thursday, thinking that I had it all figured out. I spent 4 hours, including about an hour and a half talking to the microphone, and it turns out that the file, I was using my phone, and the phone cut off after 8 seconds. So there was 8 seconds of audio after an hour-long podcast. So we're just going to kind of dive right in. I seem to have the technical difficulties figured out. First, I thought it was a microphone. Then I figured it was a program. And so I ended up downloading a different program, and I still was having issues, and so I did a forced update restore on my computer, and I feel like we're all set. So we're going to dive right into it. Today's topic title is, crap hit the fan and it's everywhere. And it kind of deals with, it's Murphy, and that guy, man, he sure likes to try to move in and stick around with you. And that's Murphy's Law. So started with the podcast issues coming into last week. I had what I thought was a fantastic episode on camping and how the stuff that we have for camping works really well with preparedness. And I'm going to redo that episode here in the next couple days, and just try to. It's sad because it was kind of freehand, and so I don't have any notes for it, but I think I can put it back together, and kind of go from there. So, had to take those two podcasts down. We went on the float trip, and everything was going good. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday morning, I get a call from my wife, and there is water backing up in the shower. So we were like on the river, like I pulled off to the side. We had just got going. We were already downriver a little bit. I pulled off to the side in my kayak because I heard the phone ringing. And sure enough, it was my wife had left a message with not only me, but the one of the guys we were with to call. So I called. She told me what was going on. It was Sunday. They were getting ready to leave for church. I had about 2 hours of water float on the water. So we went ahead and finished our float. And then I drove about an hour and a half home and proceeded to excavate the caps for the septic tank. If you don't have a septic, the way a septic tank works is everything goes from the house out a drain pipe into either 1,000 or 1,500 gallon tank. And there's some separation that goes on, and then the liquid moves through to a drain field, which then goes and disperses that effluent into the grass. And fertilizes an area of grass you'll never ever have to fertilize. So you're supposed to have this tank pumped of any solids and stuff every 5-ish years. And in the last couple months, we'd been talking about how we needed to get it done because I actually hadn't had it done in the 14 years since we've moved into this house. So it was on the list of things to do, but it was on the list of things for September. So irritated, I got everything situated with the scouts. We had 5 adults there, which was fantastic because there's a 2-deep leadership situation. You got to make sure that you have plenty of adults, but we had that covered, so it was fantastic. I hightailed it home, dug out those lids, and then had the conversation with my wife of what do we want to do. I can call them today. It's going to be super expensive. Or for less money, we can go ahead and, send you to a hotel, and you can spend the night in the hotel, water park, all the things. She just decided to stay home with the kids, and we got neighbors close by, and we've got full access to the bathrooms and the showers at the fire hall, and so she was not worried about that, which was great because it allowed us to try to save some money. So about the time that I'm about half hour from getting done digging those lids out with the pickaxe, because we have really, really tight gravel. We don't have great topsoil. So my wife gets a call from a friend. Excuse me. Wife gets a call from our friend that has the pivot, and there's a flat on it. So, all right, well, I'll be there in about an hour and a half, and I get it all dug out, ready to make the phone call, hop in the car, go change the tire on the pivot, and then drive an hour and a half back out so that I can get back to the camp because, one, I'm tired and I want to be able to just go to bed when I feel like it, and my camp is all set up already. And two, that the main reason for that is because part of the trip is you have to stay 4 nights and be on the consecutive and be on the water 5 days to get the 50-mile canoe or 50-mile canoe merit badge. So just trying to have solidarity with the crew and everything. And I figured if I'm going to want to go to sleep, I don't want to take a nap and then have to be driving out late to try to get to camp or do any of that. So hightailed it out there with the plan of calling Monday for getting the septic pumped. So Monday morning comes around. It's our last day on the water. We went Thursday to Monday, and we get going down the water a little bit. I set an alarm on my phone to go off at 9 so that I could pull over. I called the septic company. They could be here at 2. That was fantastic. Got a hold of Sarah. Everything was great. So, and we were going to be home by then anyway. So we finished our float, got back to camp, got everything broken down, get home, swap out all the gear, disperse everything back to their owners, because we had consolidated about 5 or 6 rigs into 3, just to try to save on fuel and site parking at the campground and all that kind of stuff. So we get everything all dispersed and get home, and the septic guy's here, and he's having issues with his truck. The pump's not working, and it kind of grenaded part of it and got like poop all over him, and before he even got set up to pump anything out of ours. So that was fantastic. And so he's like, I got to take off. I'll be right back. So about an hour later, they're back with an extra guy, and they get it all pumped out. He's like, go ahead and flush the toilet, run some water. So we flush both toilets, water comes out, everything's good. Now in the back of my mind, as soon as I heard that there was water backing up, my mind instantly went to the drain field is bad and going to need replaced, because it's not uncommon. And a drain field is, upwards of $15,000 for a house like ours, especially now with some of the new stuff that our county's doing. So I'm stressing hardcore. But the septic guys are like, man, the tank looks good. Everything looks great. I mean, like, we don't even really see why it would have backed up. Because the water free flowed out of the pipe. It's not like the pipe was all full and everything like that. So, okay, well, that's awesome. So they get done, they get gone, pay the guys. Always tip your service people that come out, especially ones that do that job. Not very many people do. Our bill was like $325. I threw the guy 50 spot. Really not that big of a tip. It wasn't even 20%. And it made that guy's day. Just told him, hey, whatever, man, buy beer, whatever. Really appreciate you getting out here and getting this done. And what that's going to do is, one, that's just taking care of people, especially when they're in an industry that you would not want to do. You should tip the people that do the job that you could do, that you don't want to do, or the job that you just absolutely refuse to do. So those guys left happy. It was awesome. We had been on the river for 5 days, and we'd done some river showers, used the biodegradable soap. And when we got done with the float, just kind of scrubbed up, washed off, try to keep some hygiene and the smell down a little bit from all the teenagers and stuff. And so both boys wanted to hop in the shower. So they both took a shower. Everything's all good. The water's flowing, right? And the laundry gets turned on and the dishwasher gets fired up. And I just kind of have this sneaking suspicion, and I open the hatch to go into the crawl space, and there's a fresh 2 inches of water with water pouring out. And so, So started hollering, stop everything, turn everything off. We still have issues. And then I went downstairs to investigate. There's a junction that takes half of our house from either side. And so it's 2 toilets, the kids' shower, and our bathroom sink. And then the other side is our shower, the kids' bathroom sink, because they're on face-to-face walls, and it's right below it. The break is literally between the shower and the toilet in our crawl space. So it's got our shower, the kids' bathroom sink, it's got the laundry machine, and the dishwasher and the kitchen sink on it. And so I knew that the water flowed when they flushed the toilet, so I pulled the cap off of there, had them flush the toilet. It free flowed just fine. So then I had them turn on our shower, which was the one that had backed up, and when you know it, the water starts pouring out. So stop everything. It's a 2-inch line that goes in there, and from the sink and the laundry machine and whatever else, that 2-inch pipe was plugged. And it wasn't plugged all the way solid, but it was plugged enough to where when you turned on one fixture, it overflowed within a couple minutes. The shower and the washing machines and stuff, especially because they throw a bunch of water all at once. So got out grumbled, said some words I shouldn't. That's a given. And just told everybody, hey, water's off in the house again. Don't do anything. We knew that the toilets worked and the toilets flushed because I had already figured that out. So we had toilets. We had one toilet, or we had both toilets, and we had the hand wash sink. So everybody was just using our bathroom to use the restroom, wash hand stuff. I went down the crawl space, using a snake to clean the drain. Got in there, cleaned the drain out a little bit. It seemed like it was flowing better. Had more water flow. Had my son turn on the shower and stuff again, and it took about 3 or 4 minutes, and it started leaking again. And the leak is from a P-trap down there that's not hooked to anything right now, because in our remodel process, that drain is going to be utilized by our laundry room sink. And so in the midst of everything, when I was tearing everything out to redo it, I meant to put a cap on there, but I forgot all about it. And it had a P-trap on it, and that P-trap had water in it still, so it wasn't like it was making smells or anything, so I completely forgot about it. So it's still leaking. It's now 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. I'm tired. I'm just irritated beyond all get out. I still haven't had a shower yet. And I just say, you know what? Screw it. We've got toilets. We can take showers at the fire hall in the morning if we need to. I'm done. So I grabbed my grabbed my shower stuff and I went to the fire hall and I took a shower. And just kind of took some time, came home, got everything ready for bed, went to sleep the next morning, got up, and I took the snake and I really worked that pipe over, and actually cut into it, and just to make sure that I wasn't going to have a leak again. Put a cap on that other line for now, and everything has been working fantastic since. So in and amongst all of that situation, this was on Monday. My wife and boys are in Boston right now visiting her side of the family. They were supposed to fly out Tuesday morning at 6 o'clock. We got a text from the airline at 10:30 saying that your flight has been canceled. So, and then it said you'd be offered, these other routes. Well, everything we fly, when we fly to Massachusetts, we fly from Missoula to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then into Boston. And the only other way we fly is from Missoula to Salt Lake to Boston, because we're flying with we're flying with a 2-year-old. And I would rather spend a little bit more money on our flights and not have to deal with all the layovers, the extra travel time. We leave here at 6 in the morning. We land over there at about dinner time by the time there's a time change. And it works out real nice. All of the option flights were for the next day on Wednesday, and they were like flying 2 stops, or like to Atlanta, or fly an hour to Seattle and then have a 5-hour layover, and then fly an extra hour and a half to get to Boston. And I've been on that flight. That flight sucks, especially with a 2-year-old. So I spent about an hour and a half on the phone on hold trying to get through to customer service. And at about the midnight mark, the line on the other end shut off. And my phone was still counting. My phone didn't go dead. My phone didn't disconnect. The other side of the line disconnected. And I was pissed. But I just decided I was going to go to sleep and deal with it in the morning, because they weren't going to be able to fly the next day anyway. So I'm up at 5 and call in, on hold for an hour and a half, finally get through to somebody. She's obstinate. I'm basically like asking for way too much. And I'm like, I need a supervisor. Supervisors are busy. Well, I need a supervisor. Finally get through to a supervisor. Supervisor was like a cool cat, like just cool beyond cool. Got to spend a little bit of time talking with him. I definitely wasn't being a Karen. I was just like trying to get some stuff figured out and situated, and then be reimbursed for the fact that they canceled our flight, like within 8 hours of it leaving, and just kind of ruined a bunch of things that were planned and everything. And they're like, well, we'll give you a $40 travel voucher per person. That doesn't cut it. And I promise I wasn't even a jerk to the gal on the phone. The first gal I talked to, I was polite and just like, ma'am, we're having a disconnect here, because you're not understanding what I'm wanting, and you're thinking that I'm being way more of a jerk than I am. And so I need to talk to a supervisor. So talk to the supervisor. Again, that dude was awesome. He said he had 17 years in that position, and that's crazy considering it's a customer service for an airlines. But he was just really passionate about, training the new staff, and with all the employment shortages, they're hiring a bunch of people, and he was just really passionate about training the next group, so that airline's customer service could succeed. And that was props to him. But he got us rebooked on the same flights for the next day. So this was on Tuesday. The same flights, leaving the same time, same layover, same flight numbers, same layover, everything identical, just one day later. And then the guy was really cool, and I just kind of explained to him like, hey, this is what's going on, and they're flying back for this big family reunion thing, and a wedding, and like it's just a really big bummer of a situation. And I mean, the guy ended up comping us basically a free flight to Massachusetts over the deal. So like I can't say enough how cool that was, which helped the whole situation. So we ended up getting them on a flight on Wednesday. They are in Massachusetts right now with family. It seems like they're having a great time. And I'm back here just kind of holding everything down, trying to work on the tiny house, keep the garden going, and just kind of doing my thing. So that whole adage of Murphy's Law and Murphy's going to come live with you when you're not prepared. It really is true, but it's true for people that are prepared as well, and in the preparedness community. The whole thing with the septic system was not a nightmare. I mean, it sucks. It's a mess. It was a whole process. But and it could have potentially been super expensive. But the thing that was the saving grace is knowing that we have enough set aside in our emergency fund to where we could have covered any possible, like replacing the whole septic system, tank included, if we had to, because we've done the work to be financially set up to where we have an emergency fund. And we have an emergency fund for our emergency fund so that if something goes wrong, we don't have to touch the main emergency fund, because the thought of that stresses me out. But the thought of not having the money to cover the expense stresses me out that much more. So, finances are a huge blunder, but they also are, if you have your finances under control, it saves a multitude of stress, a multitude of fights. To not have an emergency fund in place, and to be sitting there an hour and a half away, on a kayak going down a river, I would have been way more irritable. I wouldn't have been able to have fun. I'd have been just worried about how are we going to pay for this? How are we going to afford it? This is going to cripple us. $15,000 is a lot of money. And it's taken us a long time to build an emergency fund. Because basically we have a 6-month emergency fund where if I break my leg, being the primary breadwinner of the house, we can go 6 months without having, without income. And it's not going to do anything but tick me off because we burned up the emergency fund. So I would really recommend to anybody out there, if you're in the preparedness game, if you're thinking about preparedness, man, get your finances under control. Because, as the great Spirkodamus says, that's Jack Spirko, by the way, sorry about that. Had to cough uncontrollably. So, you prepare for the emergency, or the thing that's going to affect you most. And for most people, it's not a natural disaster so much. It's not a winter storm. It's not your house burning down. Most people will experience a job loss or something to that effect in their life, and be without income for a certain period of time. So when you prepare for those types of really realistic, this could actually happen to anybody. Those preparedness things carry over and through into the other things. So, I wanted to touch on tools, and some documentation stuff, today. And this kind of goes back to a few podcasts that I've heard that are retro. You should really have a good set of tools, for for yourself for on your place. Now, if you're in a city or in a rental or, you've got an apartment, you don't need to have every tool in the world. Your tools should kind of coincide with, with the property or with the place that you have. It's unrealistic in a 1-bedroom apartment to have all the battery powered tools and pipe wrenches and, a mechanic set and all that kind of stuff, because it's going to take up all your space, and you're paying rent for a reason. Part of the reason that you're paying rent is all that stuff is taken care of by the landlord, and it might take a while. So you should have some basic tools. You should have the ability to unclog a sink, not unclog a drain pipe, but unclog the P-trap in your sink. Have some wrenches, the basic stuff. But if you're a homeowner or you live in a home, especially on a half acre to an acre or whatever, you should have, incrementally larger amount of tools. And I'm not saying you need to go out and spend $10,000 on tools today. But what I am saying is, as an issue arises, before you just call, a service provider to come out and fix that thing, take a look at it, see if it's something you can tackle. Watch a couple YouTube videos. YouTube University is fantastic. I use it literally every day. I actually used it during the whole septic situation just to kind of refresh, because I've dug septic caps before and I've spent a lot of time snaking pipes and stuff, but it doesn't hurt to get right back in that mindset. So, having a service provider come out and snake that drain would have been the easy button, and we could have paid for it. But that would have been a few $100s. And the next time you have a situation like that, it's going to be a few $100s, because plumbers are $140 an hour, and typically they have a 2-hour minimum. So even if they're only here for 20 minutes unclogging that drain, they got you on the hook for $300. Now, if it's in a harder place to get to, or it's really bad and they're here for, 3 or 4 hours, now you're at $600. And they're using a tool that can cost upwards of $300, but it can cost as little as $56 at Home Depot. So just kind of keep that in mind. Do you have the wherewithal, the mental capacity to try doing that yourself? Because at most, what are you out? If you've got a drain line that needs to be snaked, and you go buy a $56 drain snake and you try it and you're out, well, you just potentially saved yourself that money. You didn't quite, but when you call the plumber, now you're like, okay, how did I screw this up? And you try to learn from the guy. And it's not like you go, hey, show me how to do this so I don't have to call you, but just be like, hey, I tried to save from calling you out here. What could I do better? And 90% of the time, they're going to show you. They're going to be happy to teach you how to do it, because nobody likes snaking drains, especially kitchen drains. Pretty much every plumber will tell you they'd rather deal with poop than kitchen drains, because there's grease, there's grime, there's all the nastiness. Kitchen drains are pretty disgusting. So, just try to have that mentality and mindset when you, when you're looking at hiring a service provider to do something. Now, if you need piping put in, or you need something done with gas lines, or anything done with electrical, anything more than like changing a light switch out, hire a professional if you don't know what you're doing. I'm not saying that everybody should just go out and try to tackle all their projects themselves. I'm just saying that you should put a little thought into it before you just pick up the phone and call somebody to come out emergently to do something. So, and that kind of rolls into the documentation side of the recommendation for today. And I know we're going a little bit long. I'm finally feeling like I found my rhythm after this whole debacle the last week and a half with the recording. So back to it, the documentation package. You should have in your spare time, and I'm not saying that, you have all the time in the world, but, next time you're sitting there watching TV, or, just kind of screwing around on your phone, pick a topic and just find, go through and start researching electricians. Research, the top 10 electricians in your area. And then also, like, ask some friends like, hey, if you had to call an electrician, who would you call? And just kind of start building a list and then writing that information down. And then maybe even call and talk to them and just say, hey, I don't need an electrician right now, but I want to have somebody like, lined up or that, if anything goes wrong, just have a conversation with them real quick and see if you even get a good feel for them. Because, hold on a second. Man, sorry about that. I just can't quit coughing today. So, trying to get a feel of them, of how they act, their attitude. Ask them what their price per hour is. Just say, hey, I don't need anything done right now, but I'm trying to figure out, like, if in the future I have an issue and you had to come out and do something, maybe what would this cost? And hey, by the way, if I call you in the middle of the night, what's that going to cost for you to come out here? And then you kind of can take and put that information down into, I like a hard paper copy, but you can put it into a phone note. You can put it into a bunch of different things. And then the next time you're bored, do that with a plumber, and then do that with an HVAC guy, and then do that with all your trades. Even if you know that you know how to do all the things, even if you are a roofer by trade and you, and you've done roofs your whole life, you need to have some alternatives written down, because you might be clear across the country and your roof blows off on your house and you need to call somebody. Now, if you're in a trade or you've done those things before, you're probably going to know just instinctively who you're going to call, but you should still have that written down, because if you're halfway across the country on a hunt or on a fishing trip or doing whatever, and your wife and your kids are at home and there's an issue and she can't get a hold of you, she needs to be able to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, look, this is what's going on, and go from there, and know that that's a person that you as a couple or whatever is comfortable with dealing with those folks. Now, I'm not being sexist here and saying that a wife doesn't know. There are plenty of females in trades. I'm just kind of in my thoughts, because my wife works in the home, and I go out and work, and I also travel. I traveled a lot more for work in the past. And so having that just makes a lot of sense. So get those service providers, and then, just to circle back, an emergency fund and having some cash set aside for a rainy day or a poopy day just really changes it from a emergency and just this horrible, like everything's going wrong in the world, to, wow, this is a shitty situation. But we don't have to worry about the cost of it. We just have to worry about getting it taken care of, and we can throw some money at it and get it fixed, and we can move on. And our plans shift a little bit, because now we're moving into rebuild the emergency fund versus pay for projects or put money aside for the future. So I have gone pretty long today, and I keep coughing, so I'm going to start rounding this up. What I'm going to do going forward is I've got a new schedule. My plan for the podcast is to try to stay between that 25 and 35 minute mark. Monday is going to be catch up and insights on what's going on in the property, what projects we have going on, things I've learned on those projects for the last week or so. Wednesday is going to be all about freeze drying and food preparation. I've got the freeze dryer running right now with some milk that we had purchased. So it's running right now, and I'm just moving into the bulk of our context and our stuff for our show is going to be moving towards freeze drying and food preservation. Being a chef, loving food, loving the freeze dryer. I love my freeze dryer. And wanting to find more creative ways to do it and everything. Wednesday's anchor segment is all going to be about that. And then Fridays, we're going to do a more of a single topic show, a little bit of research, and giving you some information that you may or may not know, and not even necessarily from like my point of view or my past and history, but just different topics having to do with preparedness and homesteading and cooking, and kind of go from there. So we're going to go ahead and do that for our schedule. And with that, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks again for listening. This is AJ Harrison with Preparing for Prosperity. You can reach me at preparing for prosperity at proton.me, and have a great day.